Chapter 1. A Curious Boy in St. Louis. The rain tapped softly against the window. A 7-year-old boy sat at a small wooden desk, his fingers clicking away on the family computer. His name was Sam Altman, and while other children played outside in the rain, Sam was busy trying to figure out how to make a game work without crashing. His eyes lit up when he discovered the problem. A small adjustment, and it worked. The screen displayed a colorful maze, and Sam smiled. To him, fixing problems wasn't frustrating. It was fun. He grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, a city known for its parks, old brick buildings, and friendly neighborhoods. His home was warm and filled with books. His mother loved reading, and his father often tinkered with small projects around the house. It was a home full of ideas. But even in such a comfortable place, Sam sometimes felt different. In school, he didn't always fit in. While other kids traded baseball cards, Sam would sit by himself, drawing diagrams of machines and robots. He loved math, science, and anything that could make him think. His teachers called him gifted, but to some classmates he was just the weird kid. Sam's curiosity often made him feel lonely. But there was one place where he didn't feel that way. At home, in front of his computer. When Sam was 8, he took apart the family computer. It was a bulky gray machine with a loud fan. His mother found him on the floor, surrounded by wires, circuit boards, and screws. "Sam!" she gasped. "What are you doing?" But when she saw the focus in his eyes, she didn't get angry. Instead, she asked, "Can you put it back together?" Sam grinned. "I think so." It took him 2 hours, but by the end, the computer was working again. His mother hugged him and said, "You're going to do something amazing one day." That moment stuck with Sam. He knew he was different, but his mother's words gave him strength. Whenever he felt like giving up, he remembered her encouragement. One afternoon, when Sam was 10, he discovered something new: coding. His older brother had left a book on programming on the kitchen table. Curious, Sam picked it up and started reading. He learned that coding was like giving instructions to the computer, telling it what to do. The idea excited him. Soon, he was spending hours every evening writing small programs. His first success was a program that could draw shapes on the screen. It wasn't much, but to Sam, it felt like magic. But being a genius kid wasn't always easy. Sometimes he wished he could be like the others. Why can't I just care about sports or TV? He thought. His classmates called him a computer nerd, and their words stung. On some nights he cried quietly in his room. He wondered if they were right, if he would always be alone, if anyone would ever understand him. His mother noticed the change. One evening she knocked on his door and sat next to him on the bed. "I know it's hard, Sam," she said softly, "but the things that make you different will one day make you special. You'll see." Sam wiped his tears and nodded. He didn't fully believe her then, but her words gave him a small sense of hope. In middle school, things didn't get much easier. The bullying continued, and Sam kept to himself. But instead of giving in to the sadness, he worked harder. He poured all his energy into learning about computers, building small machines, and studying books on science and technology. His room became his sanctuary, a place where he could dream without limits. One day, Sam built a robot using parts from old toys and a remote control car. It wasn't perfect, but it could move and avoid obstacles. His little brother clapped excitedly when the robot rolled across the living room floor. "That's so cool, Sam." Sam laughed and felt proud. For the first time, he thought, maybe my differences really can lead to something good. By the time he turned 13, Sam had created several small computer programs. Some helped solve math problems, while others were just games for fun. His father, impressed by Sam's dedication, bought him a more advanced computer. "You've earned it," his father said. Sam hugged him and spent the next week setting it up. But Sam wasn't just curious about computers. He loved puzzles and logic games. He would spend hours solving riddles and brain teasers. To him, puzzles weren't just games. They were challenges waiting to be solved. His mind worked like a detective, always looking for clues and solutions. It was this love for solving problems that would later lead him to incredible innovations. However, there was a moment that changed everything. One summer afternoon, Sam was exploring an online forum for tech enthusiasts. He read about a young programmer who had built a successful startup by creating a simple app. The story fascinated him. Could he do the same one day? Was it possible for a kid like him to make something that people around the world could use? That night, Sam couldn't sleep. His thoughts raced. He imagined building something that could make life easier, faster, or more fun. He thought about his future, not just as a computer programmer, but as someone who could create real change. "I'll do it," he whispered to himself. "I'll find a way." Despite the challenges, Sam's determination only grew. He began learning more advanced coding techniques, reading about famous inventors and entrepreneurs. His heroes included Alan Turing, the father of computer science, and Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple. They too had faced obstacles, but they never gave up. Sam promised himself that he wouldn't either. By the end of middle school, Sam had transformed. No longer shy or unsure, he was now a boy with a mission. His mother noticed the change and smiled. "You're growing up," she said one morning as he sat at the kitchen table, sketching designs for a new project. Sam nodded, but deep down, he knew he wasn't done yet. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be failures, doubts, and moments when giving up seemed easier. But Sam had learned an important lesson. With curiosity, courage, and hard work, anything was possible. His story was just beginning. And in the quiet of that summer night, as crickets chirped outside his window, Sam looked at the stars and whispered, "One day, I'll show them what I can do." Chapter 2. Behind closed doors. The sound of laughter drifted through the open window. Children were playing tag in the street. Their sneakers slapped against the pavement. The shouts grew louder, then faded as the kids ran further down the block. Inside, the room was silent, except for the rhythmic tapping of a keyboard. Sam Altman sat at his desk, hunched over a glowing screen. His fingers moved quickly. Click, click, click. The code filled the screen, one line at a time. At 12 years old, Sam was already building programs most kids his age couldn't understand. But outside his room, no one knew. To them, he was just that quiet kid. He didn't talk much at school, except when answering questions in class. He wasn't interested in sports or video games like the other boys. Instead, he loved computers. While his classmates were outside after school, Sam was behind a closed door, solving problems only he could see. The computer wasn't just a machine to him. It was a puzzle, a friend, a place where his mind felt free. Every bug he fixed, every line of code that worked, felt like a small victory. He would smile when his programs ran smoothly, even if no one was there to see it. But life outside his room wasn't always so simple. In class, Sam was the kid who finished math problems before anyone else. He liked answering questions about science. The teachers liked him. But not everyone did. The other kids noticed he wasn't like them, and they didn't let him forget it. They teased him. "Nerd," they would whisper when he walked by. "Weirdo." He tried to ignore them, but their words stuck like glue. At lunch, Sam sat alone. He would pretend to be reading or working on homework, but really, he was thinking about code. The bullies couldn't reach him there. His imagination was a shield. He imagined a day when he wouldn't feel small. He imagined creating something that could change the world. He just had to survive first. One afternoon, after a particularly hard day at school, Sam came home, threw his backpack on the floor, and went straight to his room. He slammed the door behind him and sat on the bed, staring at the floor. His heart felt heavy. He hated feeling so alone. "Why am I like this?" he whispered. He wished he could be different, just for one day. He wished the kids at school could see his world, the world he was building behind that closed door. But giving up wasn't an option. After a few minutes, he got up, wiped his eyes, and sat at his desk. The familiar glow of the computer screen greeted him, and suddenly, the weight on his shoulders didn't feel as heavy. He opened a new file and started typing. At first, the letters came slowly, but soon his fingers moved faster. The sadness faded, replaced by focus. This was where he belonged. Here, he was strong. Sam's parents worried about him. "He spends too much time in his room," his father said one evening. "Maybe he needs a break." But his mother shook her head. "He's not like other kids. We have to let him grow in his own way." She understood Sam's passion. She saw how his eyes lit up whenever he talked about coding. She didn't want to take that away from him. One night, Sam's mother knocked on his door and peeked inside. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. Sam nodded without looking up from his screen. She sat on the edge of the bed and watched him work for a moment. The room was cluttered with wires, notebooks, and computer parts. She smiled. "You know," she said, "being different isn't a bad thing." Sam stopped typing and looked at her. "It doesn't feel that way," he said. His voice was small, barely above a whisper. "I know," she replied. "But the people who change the world, they're almost always a little different." She leaned in and gently touched his arm. "Keep going. You'll see. One day, they'll understand." Her words stayed with him long after she left the room. They became a quiet mantra, a promise he repeated to himself whenever the world outside felt too harsh. One day, they'll understand. By the time Sam turned 13, his coding skills had improved dramatically. He wasn't just writing simple programs anymore. He was building games, solving logic problems, and experimenting with small software projects. His favorite creation was a text-based adventure game. It had simple commands like go left or pick up object, but to Sam, it felt like magic. He shared it with his little brother, who played for hours. Seeing someone enjoy something he had built made Sam feel proud. Maybe, just maybe, his mother was right. But even with small successes, the bullying didn't stop. In gym class, one boy shoved him during a game of dodgeball. Sam fell to the floor, his glasses sliding off. The gym echoed with laughter. His face burned with embarrassment. That night he lay in bed and thought about what his mother had said. One day, they'll understand. But when? His doubts crept in. What if they never did? What if he was destined to be alone forever? Then, one evening, something changed. While browsing an online forum, Sam found a community of young programmers like him. They shared ideas, projects, and advice. For the first time, Sam didn't feel strange. These were kids who spent hours coding, who loved solving problems just like he did. He started chatting with them, joining conversations about algorithms and game design. Slowly, he built friendships. Friendships based on ideas, not appearances. One day, Sam posted his adventure game on the forum. Within hours, other kids responded with feedback. They liked it. Some even suggested improvements. Sam's heart raced as he read their comments. They understood him. It wasn't the kids at school, but it didn't matter. He had found his people. The next morning, Sam woke up with a new sense of purpose. The bullies at school still teased him, but their words didn't sting as much. He had something they didn't. A dream. Every insult, every shove was just fuel for his fire. He knew what he wanted to do, and nothing would stop him. Behind closed doors, Sam Altman wasn't just a lonely boy. He was a builder, a thinker, and a dreamer, and soon the world would know his name. Chapter 3. The Hacker's Playground. The glow of the screen lit up Sam's face as he sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor. The house was quiet. It was late, but Sam wasn't tired. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. His heart raced as he entered a line of code and hit enter. The program processed for a few seconds, then flashed an error message. Sam sighed, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. Failure again. But he wasn't frustrated. No, he was excited. To Sam, failure was just another step toward success. At 15, Sam was no stranger to long nights and glowing screens. The internet was his playground. He explored forums, chat rooms, and hidden corners of websites where young programmers gathered. These weren't the popular sites most teens visited. These were places where people shared ideas about programming, software, and hacking. Sam wasn't interested in causing trouble. He wanted to learn how things worked. If something was broken, he wanted to fix it or make it better. He admired the DIY culture he found online. Teenagers like him were building projects from scratch, apps, games, and even websites. Some posted their work, explaining how they did it. Others shared tips on fixing bugs or improving performance. Sam soaked it all in like a sponge. He bookmarked pages, saved tutorials, and kept notes in a messy notebook by his side. His mind was on fire. Every problem he solved made him feel stronger. Every new skill brought him closer to his dream. But what was that dream exactly? At first, he wasn't sure. He knew he loved building things, but the future felt blurry. Then, one evening, everything changed. Sam was scrolling through a forum when he came across a post from a young programmer named Alex, who had just launched a mobile game. The game wasn't fancy. It was simple, with basic graphics and sound effects, but it had already been downloaded thousands of times. Sam read the post carefully. Alex explained how he had coded the game in his bedroom, using only free software. He had marketed it online, and now people around the world were playing it. Sam's breath caught. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he read the final line of the post. Anyone can do this if they put in the work. You don't need permission. Just start. Sam leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen. His mind buzzed with possibilities. I could do this too, he thought. I could build something real. For the first time, his dream didn't feel blurry anymore. It was sharp, clear, and full of potential. He wanted to create something that could make people's lives better, or at least more fun. He didn't know exactly what it would be, but he knew he had to try. The next day, Sam woke up early. The sun was barely rising, and his room was still dark. He reached for his laptop and opened a blank project file. He didn't have a specific plan, but he knew he wanted to build something. Anything. The ideas would come as he worked. He started with a simple task, creating a calculator program. Within an hour, he had it working. Then he added new features. The calculator could now solve complex equations and store results for later use. It wasn't groundbreaking, but it was a start. Over the next few months, Sam built small programs every chance he got. One of his favorites was a game similar to the classic Pong, where players bounced a ball back and forth using paddles. He added a twist. The ball changed speed and direction randomly, making the game more challenging. His younger brother tested it and laughed every time the ball sped up unexpectedly. "This is awesome," his brother said. Sam smiled, feeling proud. But not everything he tried was a success. One day, he attempted to create an app that could generate random story ideas. He imagined writers using it when they had writer's block. He spent weeks writing the code, testing different features, and fixing bugs. But when he finally ran the program, the results were disappointing. The story ideas didn't make sense. They were jumbled and confusing. Sam frowned as he looked at the screen. Was this a waste of time? Then he remembered something one of his role models had said. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, once talked about the importance of failure. Failure isn't the end, Jobs had said. It's part of the journey. Sam took a deep breath and closed the program. He would come back to it later. For now, he had other ideas to explore. His role models weren't just tech giants like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. He admired anyone who had the courage to build something from nothing. One of his favorite stories was about a teenage coder named Nick DeLoisio, who created an app called Sumly when he was just 15. The app summarized long articles into short, easy-to-read snippets. Nick had sold the app for millions of dollars. Sam wasn't interested in money, but the story inspired him. If a teenager could build something that changed the world, why couldn't he? Late one night, as the rest of the house slept, Sam sat in front of his computer and sketched out a new idea. He wanted to create a program that could help students like him organize their homework and projects. The app would have reminders, to-do lists, and even a section for storing notes. He called it Project Mate. Over the next few weeks, he worked on it every day after school. His code improved with each version, and soon the app was functional. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Sam shared Project Mate with a few friends at school. They liked it. One friend, who always forgot to do his assignments, said the app helped him stay on track. For Sam, this was a major breakthrough. For the first time, something he had built was helping people. It wasn't just a fun side project, it had a purpose. By the end of high school, Sam had built several programs, some more successful than others. He had learned that not every project would be a hit. Some would fail, and that was okay. What mattered was the process, the building, the learning, the growing. He was no longer just a boy coding in his bedroom. He was a creator, a builder of ideas. The internet had been his playground, but now it felt like a launching pad. His mind was already thinking about the next step. College was on the horizon, but Sam wasn't sure if that was where his real education would happen. He had learned more behind his computer than he ever had in a classroom. One evening, as the sun set over St. Louis, Sam sat on his bed and thought about the future. His role models had shown him what was possible. His failures had taught him resilience. His successes had given him confidence, and now he was ready for the next challenge. With a determined smile, he closed his laptop and whispered to himself, "I'm just getting started." Chapter 4. Stanford's Whisper. A Taste of Freedom. The campus was alive with energy. Students walked quickly, their backpacks bouncing as they crossed the wide lawns of Stanford University. Some laughed, others held books close to their chests. But Sam wasn't walking. He was sitting on the steps of the library, staring into the distance. His notebook lay forgotten beside him. The warm California sun shone down, but Sam felt cold inside. He had dreamed of coming to Stanford for years. It was the heart of innovation, a place where future tech leaders were made. Steve Jobs had once given a famous speech here. Google's founders had started their journey at this very campus. This was supposed to be his big moment. But something felt off. Sam was bright, and his professors knew it. In class, he answered questions quickly and understood concepts before others did. His coding projects impressed his computer science teachers. Yet he felt no spark. Instead of excitement, he felt trapped. Was this really where he belonged? The lectures were interesting, but his mind wandered. His fingers itched to do something bigger, something real. Late at night, Sam sat in his dorm room, surrounded by textbooks and half-eaten snacks. His roommate was already asleep, but Sam couldn't rest. His laptop glowed softly in the dark as he typed out ideas for new projects. Apps, games, programs that could help people. His brain never stopped buzzing, but during the day, the buzz faded into a hum, drowned out by the structure of college life. One day, after a long, dull lecture, Sam tossed his backpack onto his bed and collapsed into his desk chair. He stared at the whiteboard on the wall where he had scribbled notes and reminders. Finish homework, study for midterms, prepare presentation. None of it excited him. His heart wasn't here. Then something happened that would change everything. That evening, he received a message from an old friend, someone he had met on a tech forum years ago. "Hey, Sam," the message read. "We're working on a startup idea. You should join us." Sam's eyes widened. A startup? His pulse quickened as he read the details. It was a small team, but they had big plans. They were building a mobile app for sharing real-time locations, like a digital map that showed where your friends were at any moment. It was risky, but it was exciting. Sam leaned back in his chair, biting his lip. He had always wanted to start something like this, but leaving college wasn't part of the plan. What if he failed? What if dropping out ruined everything? He couldn't stop thinking about it. His mind raced with questions. Would he regret it? Would his parents understand? The next day, Sam walked across campus, his thoughts swirling. He watched students rushing to class, laughing at jokes, and discussing homework. They all seemed so sure of what they were doing. But Sam wasn't sure of anything, except that something inside him was pulling him in a different direction. That night, he called his mother. She listened carefully as he explained his feelings. "I don't think college is right for me," Sam admitted, his voice shaking. "There's something else I want to do." There was a long pause. He expected her to argue, to tell him to stay and finish his degree. But instead, she surprised him. "I've always known you were different, Sam," she said softly, "and I know you'll do what's right for you." He felt tears well up in his eyes. She believed in him, even when he didn't fully believe in himself. The next morning, Sam made his decision. He walked into the dean's office and submitted the paperwork to drop out. His hands trembled as he signed the final form. This was it. No turning back. As he left the office, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He had no idea what would happen next, but for the first time in months, he felt alive. Within days, Sam packed his things and moved into a small apartment with the startup team. It wasn't glamorous. The living room doubled as their office, and their meals mostly consisted of instant noodles and pizza. But Sam didn't care. He was exactly where he wanted to be. The buzz was back. His brain was on fire. The team worked late into the night, coding and brainstorming ideas. The app, which they called Looped, slowly came to life. Sam's role was critical. He helped design the software, fix bugs, and ensure that everything ran smoothly. It wasn't easy. Some nights, they encountered errors that seemed impossible to solve. Other nights, they ran out of funding and had to get creative. But through it all, Sam never gave up. One evening, after hours of debugging, the team finally got the app working. Sam watched as the screen displayed the real-time location of a teammate across town. His chest swelled with pride. It was working. They had built something real. The team cheered and high-fived each other, their laughter echoing through the tiny apartment. But success didn't come overnight. They had to pitch the app to investors, improve its features, and convince users to try it. There were moments of doubt when it felt like they were on the verge of failure. One investor even told them, "This idea will never take off." Sam walked out of that meeting with his head down, but deep inside, he knew they couldn't give up. His persistence paid off. A few months later, they secured their first major investment. The funding allowed them to expand the app and attract more users. Sam couldn't believe how far they had come. He had taken a risk, and it was starting to pay off. But it wasn't just about the money or the success. For Sam, it was about the freedom to create, to innovate, and to chase his dreams without limits. Dropping out of Stanford had been one of the hardest decisions of his life, but it was also the most important. Late one night, as Sam sat on the apartment balcony, he thought about the journey ahead. Looped was just the beginning. He had so many ideas, so many dreams waiting to be explored. The stars sparkled above him, and he smiled. This was only the first chapter of his story, and Sam was ready to write the rest. Chapter 5. Looped. The first startup. The apartment was small. Wires snaked across the floor, and empty coffee cups crowded the desk. The smell of pizza filled the air. Sam sat hunched over his laptop, typing furiously. The screen glowed, lines of code running like streams of thought. His fingers moved fast, but his mind moved faster. This had to work. It wasn't just a project anymore, it was his future. He had dropped out of Stanford with one goal: to build something real. He co-founded Looped, a mobile app designed to share locations with friends in real time. The idea was simple, but powerful. instead of calling or texting someone to ask, "Where are you?" Users could open Looped and see their friends' locations instantly. Sam believed it would change how people connected, but belief wasn't enough. Every morning, Sam woke up early and sat at his laptop. The team, a small group of passionate friends, gathered in the cramped living room. They didn't have fancy offices or big budgets. Their work was fueled by late nights, endless cups of coffee, and the sheer will to succeed. All or nothing, they told themselves. We have to give it everything. There were no weekends, no holidays, and no time to relax. The lines between day and night blurred. One night, Sam fell asleep at his desk, his head resting on his keyboard. When he woke up, the screen was filled with random letters from where his forehead had pressed the keys. He laughed softly, rubbed his eyes, and kept working. But as much as Sam loved building, he couldn't do it alone. They needed money. Without funding, Looped wouldn't survive. Investors were their only hope. The team prepared their first big pitch. Sam rehearsed in front of the mirror, practicing his words, adjusting his tone. He had to make them believe in Looped the way he did. The day of the meeting arrived. Sam wore a clean shirt and tried to hide the dark circles under his eyes. The investors sat across the table, their faces serious, their questions sharp. Why would people use this app instead of just texting? One investor asked. Sam took a deep breath and explained the vision. He painted a picture of a future where Looped would be essential for meeting friends, exploring new cities, and staying connected. Some investors nodded. Others frowned. The tension in the room was thick. After what felt like hours, the meeting ended. The investors shook hands and left, promising to think about it. Sam watched them walk away, his stomach in knots. Did we convince them? Did we do enough? He wouldn't know the answer for days, and the waiting was torture. But the call finally came. They had secured their first round of funding. Sam jumped out of his chair and cheered. The team celebrated with takeout and laughter, but they knew the real work had just begun. This was their chance. They couldn't waste it. With the funding, they rented a proper office space. It wasn't glamorous, just a small room with mismatched furniture, but it felt like progress. The team worked harder than ever, adding new features, fixing bugs, and testing the app repeatedly. They couldn't afford mistakes. One bad update could ruin everything. Despite their progress, doubts followed Sam like a shadow. What if it wasn't enough? What if people didn't care about location sharing? Late at night, when the office was quiet, Sam would sit alone, staring at the code on his screen. His mind replayed the investors' questions. He knew they were watching closely. If Looped didn't grow fast, they would pull their funding. One day, they launched a major update. Sam held his breath as users downloaded the new version. At first, things seemed fine. But then, the bug reports started flooding in. The app crashed when users tried to share their locations. Panic spread through the team. Sam's heart pounded as he tried to find the problem. He skipped meals, his hands shaking from exhaustion and anxiety. Finally, after hours of debugging, Sam found the issue. A small mistake in the code, but a big problem in reality. He fixed it, and the app was back online. But the experience left him shaken. He realized how fragile success could be. One small slip, and everything could fall apart. Despite the challenges, Looped gained attention. Tech blogs wrote about the app, and new users signed up every day. For a moment, it felt like they were winning. Sam smiled more, laughed with the team, and allowed himself to hope. But hope can be dangerous. After a year, they hit a wall. Growth slowed. User feedback was mixed. Some loved the app, but many didn't see the point. Competitors were entering the market with similar ideas. Investors started asking tough questions again. Why isn't this scaling faster? They asked. Sam didn't have a good answer. The pressure mounted. Sam worked harder than ever, but the weight of expectations crushed him. The fear of failure was always there, lurking in the back of his mind. He couldn't sleep. He barely ate. His friends noticed the change in him, but Sam brushed off their concerns. "I'm fine," he said, even when he wasn't. Then came the meeting that would change everything. The investors gathered in a room, their expressions serious. They reviewed the numbers: user growth, retention rates, revenue projections. The results weren't good enough. One investor leaned forward and said, "We're pulling out." Sam felt like the ground had disappeared beneath him. His worst fear had come true. Looped, the app he had poured his heart into, was failing. As he walked out of the meeting, his mind raced. What would he do now? Had he wasted all this time? Back at the office, the team sat in silence. No one knew what to say. Sam stared at his laptop, his hands trembling. He thought about his journey, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the dreams that had carried him this far. And then, something inside him shifted. Failure wasn't the end. It was a lesson. The next day, Sam called a team meeting. "We've learned a lot," he said. "We didn't get the result we wanted, but this isn't over. We'll take these lessons and build something better." His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. Could they really start over? Did he have what it took to keep going? One by one, his teammates nodded. They believed in him, even when he doubted himself. Sam smiled for the first time in days. Failure wasn't the end. It was just a new beginning. Looped might not have been a massive success, but it had taught him how to fight, how to adapt, and how to grow. That night, Sam sat on the floor of his apartment, surrounded by notebooks and sketches. His mind buzzed with new ideas. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't done yet. Before we begin, Chapter 6, a quick note for our listeners. You're currently listening to this audiobook on WooEnglish. Remember, this content is specially made for WooEnglish listeners only. If you're hearing it on any other channel, it may be a violation of WooEnglish's rights. Please ensure you're tuned into the right source to fully enjoy and respect this audiobook journey. Now, let's continue the story. Chapter 6. Finding His Place at Y Combinator. The phone buzzed on the table. Sam glanced at the screen, his heart heavy. It had been weeks since Loop's failure. He still carried the weight of disappointment, like a shadow that wouldn't leave. He didn't want to answer the call, but something told him to pick up. He took a deep breath and pressed the green button. "Hello, Sam?" a voice said. It was familiar, someone from his past in the startup world. "We have an opportunity for you," the caller continued. "Y Combinator wants to talk." Sam's eyes widened. Y Combinator? He sat up straighter. This wasn't just any opportunity. Y Combinator was the most famous startup accelerator in the world. They had helped launch companies like Dropbox, Airbnb, and Reddit. The people who joined Y Combinator didn't just have ideas. They had dreams that changed industries. The meeting was arranged quickly. Sam flew to Silicon Valley, the birthplace of tech giants and bold ideas. The air buzzed with energy, as though something exciting was always about to happen. As he walked into the Y Combinator office, his palms were sweaty. What would they ask him? Was he ready for this after Loop's failure? The meeting room was simple but professional. A few leaders from Y Combinator sat around a long table, their faces kind but serious. They didn't see Sam as a failure. They saw potential. One of them smiled and said, "We're in the business of dreams, Sam. And we think you can help others build theirs." They offered him a role as a partner, someone who would mentor and guide new startup founders. But Sam wanted more. He wanted to lead, to shape the future of Y Combinator. The leaders liked his ambition. Soon after, he was promoted to president, the youngest person ever to hold the position. His new job wasn't just about himself. It was about helping others succeed even when they doubted themselves, just like he once had. Sam's first weeks as president were a whirlwind. Every day he met with young founders who had big ideas but didn't know where to start. Some were nervous, others were overconfident. But Sam knew how they felt. He had been in their shoes. He listened carefully as they pitched their ideas. Why should people care about this? He often asked. How will it change the world? Some founders had brilliant answers. Others hesitated, unsure. When they struggled, Sam didn't criticize them. Instead, he shared his own story. He talked about Looped, the mistakes he made, and the lessons he learned. Failure, he told them, wasn't the end. It was a stepping stone. One day, a young founder named Alex entered the meeting room, looking pale and exhausted. He sat across from Sam and rubbed his eyes. "I don't think this is going to work," Alex said. His voice cracked. He explained that his app had launched with bugs and users were abandoning it. He was thinking of giving up. Sam leaned forward and smiled gently. "I know exactly how you feel," he said. "But trust me, this isn't the end." He gave Alex practical advice, suggesting changes to the app's features and marketing strategy. More importantly, he reminded Alex to believe in himself. "The people who succeed," Sam said, "are the ones who keep going, even when things get hard." Alex walked out of that meeting with hope in his heart. Sam's schedule was intense, but he thrived under pressure. His days were packed with meetings, but he loved every minute of it. Each new startup brought fresh energy and challenges. Some ideas seemed wild: an app for renting power tools, a service for virtual pet therapy. Others were more practical, like software to help small businesses manage inventory. No matter how strange or simple the idea, Sam treated each one with care. Late at night, when the office was quiet, Sam would sit by himself, reflecting on the day's meetings. He thought about the founders who had walked through those doors, carrying dreams as fragile as glass. Some would succeed, others wouldn't. But they all shared one thing: courage. They dared to dream, just like he had. One of the most memorable moments of Sam's time at Y Combinator came during a demo day. This was the event where startup founders pitched their products to investors, hoping to secure funding. The room was packed with venture capitalists, reporters, and tech enthusiasts. The air was electric with anticipation. As the first founder stepped onto the stage, Sam sat in the audience, holding his breath. He had worked closely with this team, helping them refine their pitch and improve their product. The founder's voice trembled at first, but as they continued, confidence grew. The pitch ended with applause, and investors leaned forward, eager to learn more. Sam felt a surge of pride. He wasn't just watching someone give a presentation. He was witnessing a dream come to life. Not every story was a success, though. Some startups failed to gain traction. When that happened, Sam didn't see it as a defeat. He saw it as a chance to learn. He encouraged founders to analyze what went wrong and try again. "You'll have more ideas," he told them. "The important thing is to keep moving forward." One evening, after a long day, Sam sat by the window of his office, watching the sunset over the Silicon Valley skyline. The view was peaceful, but his mind was still racing. Y Combinator had grown rapidly under his leadership. New programs were being introduced, and the number of startups they supported had doubled. But Sam wasn't content to sit back and watch. There was still so much more to do. He picked up his phone and called one of the founders he had mentored earlier that year. The startup had struggled, but Sam had kept in touch to offer guidance. "How are things going?" he asked. The founder laughed and said, "We just signed our first big client." Sam smiled. Moments like this made the long hours worth it. Sam's time at Y Combinator wasn't just about helping others. It was a period of growth for him too. He learned how to lead with empathy, how to balance risk and reward, and how to inspire people to believe in themselves. His role wasn't to give founders all the answers. It was to help them find their own. As the months turned into years, Sam's reputation as a mentor and leader grew. He wasn't just the young president of Y Combinator. He was someone who understood the highs and lows of building a dream. The lessons he had learned from Loop shaped him, making him wiser and stronger. One night, As he locked the office door and stepped into the cool evening air, Sam took a deep breath. This wasn't the end of his story. It was just another chapter. The future still held unknown challenges. But Sam wasn't afraid. After all, he had found his place. And with every new startup that walked through Y Combinator's doors, he knew that the best was yet to come. Chapter 7. The Weight of Expectations. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Sam Altman's office. Outside, the Silicon Valley skyline gleamed, promising endless opportunities. Inside, however, Sam wasn't looking at the view. He was staring at his laptop, a list of emails waiting for him. Each one demanded something different: a decision, a meeting, an update. The list never seemed to end. Success had brought him here, but it also brought something else: pressure. At first, leading Y Combinator felt like a dream come true. Sam loved the fast pace, the creativity, and the energy of new ideas. Every day, founders came to him with their dreams. Some ideas were wild, others practical, but all of them held potential. He thrived on their enthusiasm. But as Y Combinator grew, so did the demands. Sam wasn't just guiding one or two startups anymore. He was responsible for dozens at a time. Each founder looked to him for advice. Investors called him to ask about progress. The media praised him as a tech visionary, and industry leaders expected him to deliver results. The weight of it all pressed down on him, heavier each day. One evening, long after the office had emptied, Sam sat alone, his head resting in his hands. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. He hadn't eaten since lunch, and his stomach growled. But food was the last thing on his mind. His phone buzzed with notifications, but he ignored it. For the first time in a long while, he felt trapped. He thought back to the day he became president of Y Combinator. The excitement, the ambition, it had felt like anything was possible. But now, doubts crept into his mind like shadows. Was he really capable of leading so many people? What if he made a mistake that ruined someone's dream? What if Y Combinator's success slowed under his watch? The pressure didn't just come from the outside. It came from within. Sam was his own toughest critic. No matter how much he achieved, he always pushed himself harder. If a startup failed, he blamed himself. If an investor complained, he replayed the conversation in his head for days, wondering what he could have done differently. One night, after a particularly long day, Sam walked home in the cool night air. The streets were quiet, but his thoughts were loud. His mind raced through a list of tasks he hadn't finished. He thought about the founders who needed his help, the investors waiting for updates, and the team members who relied on him to make the right decisions. The weight on his shoulders felt unbearable. He stopped at a park bench and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel the full force of his doubts. What if he wasn't good enough? What if the success of Y Combinator had been a fluke? His breath came in shallow gasps, and he rubbed his hands over his face. Just then, his phone vibrated. He pulled it out of his pocket and saw a message from one of the founders he had mentored. "Thank you for believing in us, Sam. We just signed our first major client." The message ended with a smiling emoji. Sam stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He hadn't done the work for them. They had built the product, made the pitch, and closed the deal. But his guidance had made a difference. A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. For a brief moment, the weight lifted. Maybe he didn't have to carry it all by himself. The next day, Sam arrived at the office with a renewed sense of purpose. But that didn't mean the doubts disappeared. They still followed him, like a shadow he couldn't shake. During meetings, when a founder struggled to explain their vision, Sam wondered if he had given them bad advice. When investors asked tough questions, he felt a flicker of panic. But this time, he reminded himself that he wasn't alone. He didn't have to have all the answers. He just had to keep going. One afternoon, Sam met with a group of founders who were pitching a bold idea. A platform that used artificial intelligence to predict market trends. The idea was risky, and some of Sam's colleagues were skeptical. But as he listened to the pitch, he saw something familiar in their eyes. The same fire he had when he first started. The founders believed in their vision, even though it wasn't perfect. Sam knew what that felt like. After the meeting, one of the founders pulled Sam aside. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, and her eyes were filled with uncertainty. "We're risking everything on this idea. What if it doesn't work?" Sam thought for a moment. Did he get scared? All the time. But he didn't say that. Instead, he placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "The fear means you're doing something important. If it were easy, it wouldn't be worth it. Just don't let the fear stop you." The words weren't just for her. They were for him, too. As the months went on, Sam found ways to manage the pressure. He learned to delegate tasks, trusting his team to handle what he couldn't. He started taking breaks, going for walks when his mind felt overwhelmed. He talked to mentors and friends who reminded him that even leaders need support. He wasn't perfect, and that was okay. One evening, as the sun set over the valley, Sam stood by the window of his office, watching the golden light fade into darkness. His phone buzzed again, but this time he didn't feel the same anxiety. He had learned to separate the noise from what truly mattered. Yes, the weight of expectations was still there, but it no longer felt crushing. It felt like a reminder that people believed in him, and that he believed in them too. As he packed up his bag and prepared to leave for the night, Sam thought about the journey that had brought him here. The failures, the doubts, the successes, they were all part of the same story. And that story wasn't over yet. Stepping into the cool night air, he felt a sense of calm. There would be challenges ahead, but Sam knew he could face them. He didn't have to carry the weight alone. He had learned that leading wasn't about being perfect. It was about staying committed, even when the road got tough. With a deep breath, he walked toward the future, ready for whatever came next. Chapter 8. The AI Dream Begins. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses filled the room. Sam Altman stood by a long wooden table, a glass of water in his hand. Around him, some of the brightest minds in tech were deep in conversation. The smell of roasted vegetables and spices lingered in the air. It was supposed to be an ordinary dinner party, but that night would change everything. He wasn't expecting much. Sam had been to many events like this before. People talking about their latest projects, exchanging ideas, networking. But halfway through the evening, he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. "Imagine a world," a man said, "where machines can understand us." Sam turned toward the voice. The man, older and calm, was sitting near the fireplace, speaking with quiet intensity. "I'm not talking about simple commands or voice assistants," the man continued. "I'm talking about true artificial intelligence. Machines that can think, reason, and learn like humans." Sam's heart skipped a beat. He sat down, leaning closer. AI had fascinated him for years, but this was the first time he heard someone describe it in such a bold, futuristic way. "And you believe we can build this?" Sam asked. The man smiled. "We're closer than you think." The conversation unfolded like a story. The man described breakthroughs in machine learning, natural language processing, and neural networks. Sam listened, his mind racing. The possibilities seemed endless. AI could help doctors diagnose diseases, teach children, and solve problems that humans couldn't. But as the excitement grew, so did the questions. "What if it goes too far?" someone asked from across the table. "What if we can't control it?" The room fell silent. Sam felt a chill run down his spine, but he didn't look away. He had thought about this too. What if AI became too powerful, too fast? Could it harm people instead of helping them? The man nodded. "It's a risk," he admitted. "But great ideas always carry risk. That's why we need people who care about doing this the right way." That night, Sam couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was a storm of thoughts. AI wasn't just a tool. It could be a revolution. The power to create something that could think for itself was thrilling, but also terrifying. Could humans control something so powerful? The question lingered in his mind, but instead of scaring him, it motivated him. The next morning, Sam sat at his desk, flipping through a notebook. He scribbled down thoughts, sketches, and ideas. He had no concrete plan yet, but he knew one thing. He had to be part of this. The world of artificial intelligence wasn't just calling to him, it was pulling him in. Within weeks, he was meeting with researchers, engineers, and entrepreneurs who shared his vision. Some were cautious, others optimistic. Together, they discussed the future of AI and how it could benefit humanity. One meeting in particular stood out. Sam met with a young engineer who had created an AI model that could translate languages almost perfectly. Sam watched in awe as the program translated entire paragraphs in real time. It was proof that AI wasn't a distant dream. It was already happening. But as the excitement grew, so did the challenges. Building AI systems wasn't easy. The technology required massive amounts of data and computing power. And beyond the technical hurdles, there were moral questions. What should AI be allowed to do? How do you make sure it doesn't harm people or create inequality? Sam knew they couldn't rush. If AI was going to change the world, they had to do it responsibly. One evening, he sat with a small group of researchers at a coffee shop. The air smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastries. They debated the ethics of AI late into the night. "We need rules," one researcher said. "We can't just build this without limits." Sam agreed. "But we also can't be afraid to take risks," he added. "If we wait too long, someone else might create it without the right safeguards." That balance between caution and ambition became the core of Sam's philosophy. He believed that AI could be a force for good if the right people were in charge. But if it fell into the wrong hands, the consequences could be devastating. After months of research, conversations, and planning, Sam helped co-found OpenAI. Their mission was clear: to build powerful AI that would benefit all of humanity, not just a select few. It was a bold promise. But Sam believed in it with all his heart. They weren't just building technology. They were shaping the future. OpenAI started small with a tight-knit team of experts who worked around the clock. Their office wasn't fancy, but it didn't need to be. The real work happened on their computers, where lines of code slowly came together to create something extraordinary. Every milestone, no matter how small, felt like a victory. The first time an AI system successfully completed a complex task, the team cheered, but they didn't celebrate for long. There was always more work to do. Late at night, after most of the team had gone home, Sam would stay behind. He would walk through the empty office, the hum of computers filling the silence. Sometimes he would sit by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. He thought about the risks they were taking, the pressure they faced, but he also thought about the possibilities. AI could help solve problems that had existed for generations: poverty, disease, climate change. It could give people more time to be creative, to spend with family, to live fuller lives. But there were setbacks too. Not every experiment worked. Some projects failed completely, wasting weeks of work. The pressure mounted as investors and the public watched their every move. Is this worth it? Sam asked himself during one particularly difficult night. He was tired, overwhelmed, and unsure. But the next morning, he remembered why he had started. AI wasn't just about success or failure. It was about the journey. Even the failures taught them something new. Slowly, they were building something that could change the world. As OpenAI grew, so did Sam's sense of responsibility. He wasn't just building technology, he was helping decide its role in society. The risks were real, but he didn't back down. In fact, the risks made him even more determined. "We can't leave this to chance," he told his team. "We have to do it right." One evening, as the team celebrated another breakthrough, Sam stood quietly in the corner, watching them laugh and share stories. The mission was bigger than any of them, but together they were making it happen. The journey was far from over, but Sam knew one thing for sure. This dream, this challenge, was worth every risk. Chapter 9. Founding OpenAI. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of a nearby air conditioner. Sam Altman sat at the large wooden table surrounded by some of the brightest minds in technology. The whiteboard behind him was covered in sketches, equations, and bold ideas. This wasn't just another meeting. It was the beginning of something that could change the world. He looked around the table. The faces were familiar. Engineers, entrepreneurs, scientists. People who had built some of the most successful companies in Silicon Valley. But this project wasn't about making money. It was about creating something bigger. AI wasn't just another tool. It could be a revolution. But revolutions needed direction. Sam leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. "Let's build something incredible together," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "Let's make AI that helps everyone, not just a few powerful companies." The room fell silent. Then, one by one, they nodded. Open. AI was born. The mission was clear: develop safe, advanced AI and ensure its benefits were shared widely. But the path ahead wasn't simple. As soon as they began, challenges emerged like cracks in the road. They needed funding, lots of it. AI research required powerful computers, skilled engineers, and time. Sam knew they couldn't rely on small investments. They needed partners who believed in their vision. He met with investors, explaining the importance of OpenAI's mission. "This isn't just about building technology," he told them. "It's about building a future we can trust." Some investors were hesitant. They worried about the risks and the competition. But others saw Sam's passion and believed in him. Slowly, the funding trickled in. With money secured, the team got to work. They rented a modest office with plain walls and desks cluttered with wires and notebooks. The air often smelled of coffee and takeout. It wasn't glamorous, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the work. The long hours spent writing code, testing algorithms, and discussing theories. Every morning, the team gathered for short meetings. They discussed progress and problems, sometimes arguing over the best solutions. Disagreements weren't a sign of failure, they were a sign of progress. Sam encouraged open conversations. He believed that the best ideas came from collaboration, not from one person giving orders. But not all problems were technical. One day, During a meeting about AI ethics, a debate broke out. How do we make sure this doesn't fall into the wrong hands? A researcher asked, his voice tense. What if someone uses it to create harmful technology? Sam didn't have an easy answer. No one did. They discussed safeguards, monitoring systems, and regulations. We can't control everything, Sam admitted. But we can set a good example. If we build this responsibly, others might follow. The team agreed, but the weight of that responsibility was always there. In quiet moments, Sam felt it pressing down on him, like a stone he couldn't lift. What if they made a mistake? What if their AI caused more harm than good? But instead of letting the fear paralyze him, he used it to fuel his determination. The first breakthrough came after months of trial and error. The team had been working on a natural language processing model, a program that could understand and generate human-like text. It had failed repeatedly, spitting out sentences that didn't make sense. Frustration filled the office, and tensions rose. One night, Sam stayed late, staring at the lines of code on his screen. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he didn't stop. Failure was just a step toward success, he reminded himself. Finally, just before midnight, the program worked. The sentences were clear, coherent, and surprisingly human-like. He jumped out of his chair and called a team member over. "Look at this," Sam said, pointing at the screen. The team member's eyes widened. Within minutes, others gathered around, their exhaustion replaced by excitement. They had done it. But success didn't mean the challenges were over. As I gained attention, critics voiced their concerns. Some feared that AI could take jobs, spread misinformation, or even become dangerous. Journalists wrote articles questioning OpenAI's mission. Was it really possible to build AI that benefited everyone? Or was it just a dream? Sam read every article, every comment. Some of the criticism stung, but instead of hiding from it, he faced it head-on. He gave interviews, explaining their mission and their plans for safety. AI isn't inherently good or bad, he said during one interview. It's a tool. How we use it will define its impact on the world. He wasn't naive. He knew that no matter how careful they were, risks would remain. But giving up wasn't an option. The world was moving fast, and if they didn't lead, someone else would. And that someone might not care about safety or fairness. The team continued to grow, attracting more experts from around the world. They worked on AI systems that could solve complex problems, from translating languages to diagnosing diseases. The possibilities seemed endless, but Sam reminded them to stay focused. One step at a time, he often said. We can't do everything at once. One afternoon, while reviewing a project proposal, Sam paused. He looked out the window, watching the cars pass by on the busy street below. Was this enough? Were they doing the right things? His mind raced with doubts. But then he remembered something a mentor had once told him. You don't need all the answers right away. Just keep moving forward. He smiled, took a deep breath, and returned to the proposal. This wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon, and he was willing to run as long as it took. As Open A. I grew. So did its impact. Companies started using their AI models for translation, customer service, and data analysis. Hospitals used them to help doctors identify diseases faster. Students used them to learn new subjects. I was slowly weaving itself into everyday life. But Sam didn't let the success make him complacent. There was still so much more to do. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Sam sat in the quiet office, reflecting on how far they had come. From a small idea around a table to a global organization making real change. But this wasn't the end of the journey. It was just the beginning. He stood up, grabbed his bag, and walked toward the exit. As he locked the door behind him, the night air felt cool against his skin. The future was uncertain, but Sam wasn't afraid. He had learned to embrace the unknown, to see challenges as opportunities. And as he walked down the street, one thought echoed in his mind. Let's keep building. Chapter 10. Breakthroughs and Backlash. The room buzzed with excitement. Computer monitors glowed, casting blue light across the walls. Engineers and researchers moved quickly, checking data, adjusting code, and running tests. It was a big day at OpenAI. They were about to unveil their latest breakthrough in natural language processing. The new AI model could generate human-like text, answer complex questions, and even write essays. Sam Altman stood at the back of the room, watching it all unfold. After months of hard work, the moment had arrived. A researcher clicked the run button, and the AI system responded instantly. The text appeared on the screen, clear and logical, as if a human had written it. Someone in the room let out a cheer. Sam smiled, but deep inside, he felt a mix of pride and nervousness. What would the world think of this? The team celebrated late into the night. They knew the breakthrough was monumental. But Sam wasn't just thinking about success. He was thinking about what would come next. Breakthroughs often brought attention, and attention wasn't always positive. His prediction came true faster than he expected. Within days of the announcement, news articles flooded the internet. Some praised OpenAI for pushing the boundaries of technology. Others raised alarms. Will AI steal jobs? One headline asked in bold letters. A new threat to truth, another article warned, referring to the AI's ability to generate fake news or misleading content. Sam sat at his desk, scrolling through the comments online. Critics were everywhere. People worried that AI would replace writers, teachers, and customer service workers. Some believed it could be used to spread propaganda or false information. The fear was real. And Sam knew that fear could grow faster than any technological progress. He received requests for interviews almost immediately. Some reporters wanted to talk about the technology's potential. Others were more interested in its dangers. Sam agreed to the interviews, knowing that hiding wouldn't help. He had to face the questions head on. The first interview was with a well-known journalist. The lights in the studio were bright, and the cameras zoomed in as Sam adjusted his microphone. The journalist didn't waste time. "People are scared," she said. "They think AI will take their jobs. They think it could be dangerous. What do you say to them?" Sam took a breath. "I understand the concerns," he replied. "AI is a powerful tool, and like any tool, it depends on how we use it. We're not here to replace people. We're here to make life better, to solve problems humans can't solve on their own." "But what about misinformation?" the journalist asked. "Your AI can create content that looks real, but isn't. Couldn't that be harmful?" Sam nodded slowly. This was the hardest question to answer. "Yes," he said honestly, I can be misused. That's why we're working on safeguards. We're developing ways to detect AI-generated content and stop it from spreading harmful information. We're not ignoring the risks. We're facing them." The interview ended, but the pressure didn't. Every answer seemed to lead to more questions. As Open A, I gained more attention. The public debate intensified. Protesters gathered outside tech conferences, holding signs that read, "Protect our jobs" and "Stop AI before it's too late." Sam watched from the window of a conference hall, his mind racing. Had they moved too fast? Back at the office, the team worked harder than ever. They weren't just developing new AI models. They were creating policies and guidelines to ensure those models were used responsibly. They consulted experts in ethics, law, and education. "We can't just think about what's possible," Sam told his team. "We have to think about what's right." One day, a researcher showed him a report predicting that certain jobs could become obsolete because of AI automation. Sam's stomach tightened as he read it. He knew automation was inevitable, but he didn't want to see people lose their livelihoods. Could OpenAI create new opportunities to balance the jobs it displaced? He thought about this constantly. That evening, Sam attended a town hall meeting to discuss AI's impact on the community. The room was packed. People of all ages sat in rows, waiting to hear what he had to say. Sam walked to the front, holding a microphone. He could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. "AI isn't just about technology," Sam began. "It's about people. It's about how we work, live, and interact with each other. I know many of you are worried. You're afraid AI will change things in ways we can't control. I won't pretend to have all the answers, but I promise you this. We're working to make sure AI helps, not hurts." A man in the audience stood up. "What about my job?" he asked. "I've been a translator for 20 years. Now AI can do it faster. What am I supposed to do?" Sam paused. He didn't want to give an empty answer. "AI will change some jobs," he admitted. "But it will also create new ones, jobs we haven't even imagined yet. What we need to do is prepare for that change. We're working with educators, businesses, and policymakers to ensure people like you have opportunities to learn new skills. The man nodded, but Sam could see the uncertainty in his eyes. This wasn't a problem he could solve overnight, but that didn't mean he wouldn't try. Back at the office, Sam gathered his team for a meeting. "We need to do more," he said. "I shouldn't just be about replacing tasks. It should be about creating tools that empower people." They brainstormed ways to use AI for education, healthcare, and small business growth. If they could prove that AI could be a force for good, maybe they could ease some of the fears. Over time, OpenAI launched programs designed to help people transition to new careers. They created AI-powered tools for teachers, allowing them to personalize lessons for students. They worked with doctors to develop systems that could diagnose diseases faster and more accurately. Step by step, they showed the world that AI could be more than a threat. It could be a partner. But the critics never disappeared completely. Sam had learned that with every breakthrough came new concerns. It was a cycle he couldn't stop, but he could manage it. His role wasn't just to build AI, it was to guide its impact. Late one night, as the city lights flickered outside his window, Sam reflected on the journey so far. He knew there were more challenges ahead, more breakthroughs, more backlash, but he wasn't afraid. Because with every question, every doubt, came an opportunity to do better. And Sam was ready. Chapter 11. The ChatGPT Revolution. The clock ticked past midnight. The office was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional click of a keyboard. Sam Altman leaned over his laptop, scrolling through lines of code. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't care. They were on the verge of something big. His team was preparing to launch ChatGPT, an AI system designed to understand language, answer questions, and help with complex tasks. But tonight, tension filled the air. A programmer across the room suddenly sighed and rubbed his eyes. "Another bug," he muttered. Sam stood up and walked over. He placed a hand on the programmer's shoulder. "We'll fix it," Sam said confidently. "We always do." But inside, Sam wasn't so sure. What if the system crashed during the launch? What if the world wasn't ready for AI this advanced? The pressure was immense. Investors were watching. The media was waiting. Millions of potential users would judge them. This wasn't just another product launch. It was a global moment. Sam had led OpenAI through difficult times before, but this felt different. This felt like a turning point. The next morning, the team gathered for a final meeting. Everyone looked tired, but there was excitement in their eyes. A developer raised his hand. "What's the biggest risk today?" he asked. Sam took a deep breath. "There's always a risk," he replied. "But if we've done our job right, this will be more than just a tool. It will be something that helps people. Don't focus on the risks. Focus on the potential." The countdown to launch began. Sam watched as the clock hit 0. In that moment, everything went silent. Then, the system went live. At first, there were no problems. Users from around the world began interacting with ChatGPT. It helped students with their homework, generated creative writing ideas, and answered difficult questions. Sam's phone buzzed constantly with updates. "It's working," one message read. "No crashes so far," said another. For a brief moment, relief washed over him. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. They had done it, but the calm didn't last long. Just hours after the launch, emails flooded in. Some users were amazed. "This is incredible," wrote one teacher who used ChatGPT to plan lessons. A young writer thanked the team for helping her brainstorm ideas for her first novel. For many, ChatGPT was a dream come true. But not everyone was impressed. Critics voiced their concerns on social media. "This AI is too powerful," one post read. "What if students use it to cheat? What if it spreads false information?" Sam had expected this reaction, but the intensity of it surprised him. News outlets began publishing articles. Some called ChatGPT a marvel. Others called it a monster. Sam couldn't look away from the headlines. "AI can write your homework, but is that a good thing?" The end of original thought. OpenAI's latest tool raises ethical concerns. That night, Sam sat in his office, reading through the feedback. His head throbbed from lack of sleep. A part of him wanted to shut off his computer and escape the noise, but he knew he couldn't. ChatGPT wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was part of the real world. And the real world didn't come with easy answers. The next morning, the team gathered again. Sam stood at the front of the room, his arms crossed. "We need to address this feedback," he said. "Some concerns are valid. We can't ignore them." They brainstormed solutions. They discussed updates that could help detect misuse and prevent the spread of false information. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Sam reminded them that innovation often caused fear. "When the car was invented, people said it was dangerous," he said. "When the internet became popular, people said it would ruin society. Every breakthrough comes with backlash. We just have to stay focused." But as the days passed, the criticism didn't go away. Sam appeared on talk shows and podcasts, answering tough questions. "Isn't ChatGPT making people lazy?" one host asked. "No," Sam replied firmly. "It's making them more efficient. It's a tool, like a calculator. It helps people solve problems faster, but it's up to humans to use it responsibly." Still, doubts lingered. Late one night, Sam sat alone, staring out the window. The city lights twinkled like stars, but his mind was racing. What if they had created something they couldn't control? He thought about the students who might rely too much on ChatGPT, the writers who might stop creating their own stories. Was the world better with ChatGPT, or had they made a mistake? The next day, his team shared new data. Millions of users were logging in daily. Some used ChatGPT to learn new skills. Others used it to write emails or draft business plans. Sam smiled as he read a story about a small business owner who had used ChatGPT to create marketing ideas and boost her sales. These were the stories that mattered. They reminded him why he had taken this risk in the first place. But then another challenge appeared. Competitors were entering the market with their own AI tools. Some were less cautious about safety and ethics. OpenAI. I was no longer the only player in the game. Sam knew they had to move fast, but they couldn't afford to cut corners. He called an emergency meeting. "We're not just competing on technology," he said. "We're competing on trust. People need to know they can trust us. That's what will set us apart." The team doubled down on improving ChatGPT. They added features to help users fact-check information and built tools to detect misuse. But Sam also knew that AI's future wasn't just about technology. It was about education. He began working with schools, teaching students how to use AI responsibly. Months later, Sam received an email from a teacher. She explained how ChatGPT had helped her students improve their writing skills. "At first, I was worried they'd stop thinking for themselves," she wrote. "But instead, it's inspired them. They're more creative than ever." Sam read the email twice, a smile spreading across his face. This was the impact he had hoped for. ChatGPT wasn't perfect, but it had potential to help, to inspire, and to change lives. As the sun set that evening, Sam sat on a bench outside the office. The cool breeze brushed against his skin, and for the first time in days, he felt at peace. They had faced the fears, the criticism, and the doubts, and they had come out stronger. ChatGPT had revolutionized how people worked, learned, and created. The journey wasn't over, but Sam knew they were on the right path. This was only the beginning. As he stood up and walked into the night, one thought echoed in his mind. We've only just started to unlock the potential of AI. Chapter 12. Beyond the Horizon. What's next? The wind whispered softly through the trees as Sam Altman walked along the quiet path near his home. The evening sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. Birds chirped their final songs of the day. Sam smiled to himself, breathing in the cool air. He often walked here when he needed to think, and today there was a lot on his mind. The last few years had been a whirlwind. He had seen success, failure, doubt, and triumph. From building Looped to leading Y Combinator, from founding OpenAI to launching ChatGPT, every step had shaped him. But this moment wasn't about looking back. It was about looking forward. The world had changed rapidly, and Sam knew it would keep changing. I wasn't just a concept anymore. It was part of everyday life. People used it to write essays, solve problems, and even compose music. But the more powerful AI became, the more responsibility they had to guide its development. Sam understood this better than anyone. He paused by a bench and sat down, running his fingers along the wooden armrest. In his heart, he still felt like that curious kid from St. Louis, taking apart the family computer and wondering how things worked. Back then, the world seemed full of mysteries. Today, it felt full of possibilities. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "The future isn't just what we build, it's how we build it," he thought. This had become his mantra, a guiding principle for every decision he made. AI could solve big problems: climate change, disease, hunger, but only if they built it right. A memory surfaced in his mind. He was 12, sitting alone in his bedroom, typing furiously on an old computer. Back then, failure didn't scare him. Every bug in his code was just a puzzle waiting to be solved. But now, failure felt different. If they got this wrong, the consequences could be enormous. Would AI make the world better, or would it deepen existing problems? Sam shook off the thought. He knew that fear was normal, but it couldn't control him. They had already made progress. Open A. I had introduced AI systems that could help teachers, doctors, and small business owners. But there was more to do. His next goal was to build AI systems that could tackle problems no human could solve alone. He pictured an AI that could predict environmental disasters before they happened. What if they could stop a flood or wildfire before it destroyed homes and lives? What if they could use AI to find cures for diseases faster than ever before? His mind raced with ideas, each one more exciting than the last. But ambition wasn't enough. Sam knew that safety had to come first. Smarter AI is only good if it's also safer, he often said during meetings. They had to build systems that wouldn't harm people or be misused. That's why they were investing heavily in research to understand the risks. What happens when AI becomes too powerful? Could humans lose control of it? These questions kept him awake at night. He stood up from the bench and started walking again. His footsteps were slow, deliberate. The sound of gravel crunching beneath his shoes was the only noise around him. The world felt calm, but his mind was anything but. He was already planning his next big project, an AI model that could help scientists analyze massive amounts of data, uncovering patterns humans might miss. But AI wasn't just about solving global issues. It could also bring joy and creativity. He dreamed of AI that could collaborate with artists, invent new forms of music, and create digital paintings that moved people to tears. Why should AI only be seen as a tool for work and productivity? It could inspire, entertain, and bring beauty into people's lives. As he reached the end of the path, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked the screen, a message from one of his team members. The prototype for the new AI assistant is ready for testing, the message read. Sam smiled. This was what he loved most, seeing ideas come to life. He replied quickly, "Great job. I'll be there first thing tomorrow." He slipped the phone back into his pocket and continued walking. Collaboration had always been his secret weapon. He wasn't afraid to admit when he didn't have all the answers. His team was full of brilliant minds, and together they made each other stronger. Sam often told them, "The best solutions come when we work together." But even with a great team, leadership wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, times when he wondered if he was pushing them too hard or aiming too high. He remembered one particularly tough day when a project had failed, costing